Welcome to Powerful Women Rising, the podcast for female entrepreneurs playing by their own rules and growing their businesses their way. Join business relationship strategist and your host, Melissa Snow, as she brings you practical perspectives and candid conversations. Each episode guides you to make smarter decisions and take bold action as you build a business that's both profitable and aligned. Because the world is a better place when powerful women rise together.
Hello. Welcome back to another episode of the Powerful Women Rising podcast. I'm your host, Melissa Snow. I always think I'm going to say something new at the beginning of this podcast, and then I just go right back to the exact same thing I say every time. So if you have been listening for a while and you say it with me, you are a real one. You are the OG BFF of PWR. That's all I have. Okay, welcome to today's episode. If you are just tuning in for the first time, welcome. Yes, I am always this weird. No, I don't get much funnier. But in all seriousness, let's talk about how I find guests for the Powerful Women Rising podcast. Because I get hundreds and hundreds of applications from amazing women and a few men all over the globe who want to be guests on this podcast. And if you are someone who wants to start guesting on podcasts or likes guesting on podcasts, I'm going to give you a little insight into how I choose my guests. First, we have very detailed information on the website about who we are looking for, what kind of guest is a good fit for the podcast, what we require of guests on the podcast, the kinds of topics that we are looking for, and who or what topics would not be a good fit for the podcast. And at the end of that section is a statement that says, if you read this application, please be sure to mention your favorite fruit somewhere in your podcast application answers. And I added that after a while. I didn't have that in the first couple years, but now that we get so many applications, I added that in because I really only want guests on the podcast who know that they are a fit, who are committed enough to read that entire section, which by the way is not that long, and who are really paying attention and being discerning about, is this podcast a good fit for me as a guest? Because that's just as important as me deciding if they're a good fit for the podcast. So that's the first qualifier. Then I look through their responses to the questions and I look for red flags. I look for things that are exactly the things that I said in the introduction would not make you a good fit for the podcast. For example, if you have a topic that has nothing to do with female entrepreneurs, for example, pelvic floor health or how to eat more vegetables. Yeah, I guess in a roundabout way, we could argue that those are related to entrepreneurship because like if you're peeing your pants all the time, it's probably difficult to build your business. If you're not eating all of your vegetables, you might not have the same energy, endurance, stamina that other business owners have. But that's not really what this podcast is about. So that's the second thing I look for. I also look for red flags. Like one of the things that I say in the introduction is I don't want people who just like vomit out the word salad about alignment and integrity and fulfillment and energy and all of those things, right? Like I want people who can talk about practical solutions, who can give real examples, who can give actionable strategies that listeners can start using right away. Not people who are just here to sound good or to make themselves look good or to get more followers or more clients. I want people who are truly here in the heart of service. And then the last thing I look for is this somebody that I want to talk to? And is this a topic that I and my audience would be interested in? And so far, this has not failed me. And I'm sharing this information with you partly because I think it's helpful, but also because this is how I found today's guest. Because initially you think, okay, she's a dream life coach. First of all, that sounds like word salad that Melissa would never be interested in. And also that has nothing to do with entrepreneurship. But actually, Denise is a badass who knows so much. She is a clinical psychologist. She's a motivational speaker. She's a multi-million-dollar earning entrepreneur. entrepreneur, so clearly she knows her stuff. And the more I talk to Denise about certain things like burnout, self-sabotage, why we were super excited about our business at one point and now we're not as excited about it anymore, I knew that she was the perfect guest for this podcast. Partly because if you know me and you've been following me for a while, you know I'm struggling with some of those things. But also because I know we all struggle with those things from time to time. And Denise's advice is not the same old cookie cutter, know your why, read your testimonials, and you'll feel better advice. She really gets into what's happening in your subconscious and some practical solutions to help you get that spark back. In her bio, Denise said that she found her calling inspiring others to go after their dreams, helping clients overcome self-sabotage by retraining their subconscious expectations. And I have found that to be so true. So I have no doubt that you are going to benefit from this interview as much as I did. And I'm so excited for you. Hello, Denise. Welcome to the Powerful Women Rising podcast.
Thank you so much for inviting me. I'm glad to be here.
Yes, I'm so excited to chat with you. Tell us a little bit about you and about what you do before we dive into our conversation.
All right. Well, currently I am a dream life coach and I support clients in overcoming self-sabotage, really getting out of that place of stuckness and creating a life that they love. And I also certify coaches in my methodology so they can do the same thing.
That's awesome. Tell us a little bit about your methodology and what makes it different than maybe like something that we've seen with other coaches.
Yeah, absolutely. I have a background in clinical psychology and have worked in the mental health world for a long time. And so I feel like my methodology weaves in some of the traditional therapeutic modalities, cognitive behavioral therapy, dialectical behavioral therapy. Some of that stuff is kind of woven in, but it's truly focused not on why am I the way that I am, but who do I want to be now? In working with people, I mean, and specifically I'm thinking those in my trauma groups, there's a lot of talk about what happened. And at some point, like that's really important to bring the darkness to light. But at some point we do have to say what's next. And so my programs are really about creating that version of you that you want to see next, really focusing in on what you want life to be. So I have what I call the dream life pathway, head, heart, feet. Do you know what you want? Do you believe it's possible? And do you know how to go get it? And then there's a ton of different exercises to help you gain clarity, relight your spark, and actually take action.
That's awesome. I love that. And it's so applicable, I think, to business too, because I feel like the times that the head, the heart, and the feet are all aligned, I wish it happened more frequently.
That's when the magic happens. Yes.
Yes, absolutely. So I want to ask you some questions today. It's funny, the 3 interviews that I had back to back today are all like, I feel like for me personally, the conversations that I needed to be having today. And they're all so different too. Like I started out talking about meta ads and now we're talking about burnout, but clearly I needed to hear about both of them. So I would love to hear from you kind of what you see with your clients, whether they're business owners or moms or whatever they are. We all experience burnout in similar ways, but what are some of the reasons that you see that happening most commonly, especially with women?
Yeah, absolutely. I work with a lot of business owners too. And a lot of times people will say, I want to change my life, but that's really hard. I'm going to go back to what I know and I'm going to stay where I am. And so I do work with a lot of people who want life to be different, but it feels so overwhelming and so like such a mountain that they really don't even know where to start. And so whether you're a mom, a stay-at-home mom, a working mom, a business owner, a work-from-home mom, all of the things, I think that it really applies to all of it. Burnout, I find, happens when you're, number one, out of alignment. You know, you're doing things you don't want to do all the time. Like that can grate on your soul. And you come home from whatever your day looks like, and you're just like, I'm exhausted. And what I hope for people is that what they're doing gives them life. You know, yes, you may be physically tired. Yes, we need to recharge. But when what you're doing, you know, sucks the soul out of you, that's a time to have a conversation. The other thing that I find is that people literally have too much on their plate. Like, I'll ask clients, they'll say, oh my gosh, I can't get anything done. I really want to XYZ and I'm not doing it. What's wrong with me? And I'll ask them, all right, well, take me through your calendar. Let's really get to the nitty gritty of this. This is not just ethereal or thought processes. This is like tangible. So tell me what your day looks like. And there's no wiggle room. And then they want to add on all of this other stuff without prioritizing or taking things away. And so I'm like, girl, yeah, of course you're overwhelmed because you literally don't have time to breathe. And so both of those things, whether you're filled to the brim with alignment, I mean, that could be possible, but you still could have too much on your plate. And we really need to prioritize, take a look, or you're just doing things that don't fill your cup and don't bring you joy, and you'd come home depleted.
Yeah. So where do we start? I mean, maybe the answer is just doing the opposite of what you just said. But if we want to kind of get that spark back, we want to find like, why was it that we liked doing what we were doing in the first place? Why did I start this business? Is there anything I like about being a mom? Why did I take this job? Right? Like, we want to get back to that space. How do we start to get there?
Yeah. So first things first is literally asking those questions. Okay, I prayed for this life at some point. Like, this is the life I wanted. This is the career that I chose. This is the children I wanted to have, right? And so why did I want this down the road? Where did that spark originally come from? I often say my spark came when I was working at camp. I was working with inner city foster kids, and I was like, this is what I'm supposed to do. I'm supposed to help people know how awesome they are. And then slowly but surely, in the clinical psychology days, that spark started to fade. And so I had to reconnect with that old spark quite a bit. Like, why am I here? Sometimes I would find a client or two or three, or a group I was leading, or like connect it back to that purpose. This is why I'm doing it. There might be a lot of extra paperwork. There might be a lot of chaos that's happening, but this is why I'm here. And I really had to emotionally connect to why I started in the first place. The second thing I'll say is those little daily gratitudes, because I think we do wait or search for the mountaintop, like, finally I made it. And we know in business, in corporate, like, you're never quite made it. Even when you make it, you don't necessarily feel like you made it, right? And so enjoying the journey and really recognizing that gratitude along the way can really help.
Yeah.
The third thing I'll mention is, like, let's actually prioritize and say, are there things that I'm doing in my business that aren't actually moving the needle, that I don't really need to do? Are there things in my business that need to get done but doesn't need to be me? Like, should I start outsourcing some stuff? Should I get Opus Pro for Reels? Should I hire a VA for, admin work? Like, are there some things that, although I love the mission of my business, I love what I'm doing, there's just stuff that doesn't fit my personality that I could get some help with, let go, or rethink?
Yeah, that totally makes sense. I think one of the things that I was thinking when you were talking about prioritizing too, is I read this book 100 years ago when I was a teacher, and it was specifically geared towards teachers, but I never forgot it. And it was talking about like looking at all the activities that you do throughout the day and designating like which ones are energy givers and which ones are energy drainers. And I still think about my life in those terms a lot. Like, we go through the motions.
Yeah.
And a lot of times we don't stop to think like, do I actually even need to be doing this? Like, is there any point to doing this? Like, the one time somebody said to me, like, why are you doing a podcast episode every week? Why don't you do every other week? And I was like, wait, what? We can just like do that?
Right.
That's weird. But things like that, where we just kind of reevaluate, like, is this something? Of course, we don't live in dreamland, so not everything is going to be an energy giver that we love to do, right? Like, nobody is like, oh my gosh, I can't wait to sit down and pay all these bills. And that's life. But where can we work in more of those energy givers, and where can we get some of those energy drainers off of our plate? I think is really helpful too.
I remember my husband, I was like, oh my gosh, I have all this stuff to do. I have to go for a run, and I have to check this and do that and blah, blah, blah. And he goes, says who? And I was like, I guess says me. I can say something different than if I really feel. Yeah, exactly. And I think sometimes it's less about the activity and it's more about, maybe you do need to pay your bills sometimes, and maybe you do want to do a podcast weekly, but there could be other ways to fill your cup outside of what you're doing. So, for example, in one of my programs, we create a joy list. Like, what are the things that bring you joy? And then, are you actually doing them? And they're not being on Oprah's favorite things. They're like walking the dog, listening to worship music in the morning, having my quiet time, drinking my cup of coffee in silence, like, oh, playing the guitar. I haven't done that in a while. So sometimes it's not about rehauling everything. It's really just finding those moments where you can do the things that fill you back up. So then you have more energy doing the things that you kind of need to do.
Yeah. How would that impact someone who is running a business or starting a business or growing a business? Because I feel like, especially in the beginning, when I wasn't making money consistently, I would have heard something like this and I would have thought, that sounds really lovely. And I don't have time to play the guitar. Like, I got to do stuff because I need to be making money in this business or I'm going to have to go get a job. So how does it actually benefit us to step away from our business and do some of those things that bring us joy?
Well, have you ever talked to someone that didn't have a morning routine and then they did? And like the drastic life changes that happen when you do the work more centered. I think that's what it's all about. It's because I can message 50 people about my business, but if I have chaotic energy, if I'm, kind of out of scarcity or fear or whatever, they can feel that. But if I take the 30 minutes, because we're not talking about hours, we're talking about, 15, 30 minutes to do something that gets you back in alignment, that fills your cup up, that gives you kind of some of your sanity back. And then I do those income producing activities, you get so much better results. When I'm messaging people from like full belief, from full excitement, from like, this is the best thing since sliced bread, the energy behind it really does impact the outcome that I get. So I think I kind of include it as part of my work day, personal development, going for a walk, like just keeping myself full is a part of my job.
Yeah, I totally agree. It's funny. I just had that conversation with one of the members of the Powerful Women Rising community. I was doing a one-on-one coaching call with her, and she's trying to fill a program that she's launched, and she is doing way more than she's ever done before to try to fill this program, marketing wise and reaching out to people and selling and doing all the things. And so we were talking about, she's like in her final push and she's only had one person signed up. And so we were talking about, she wanted to know, like, what should I be doing? Like, give me the to-do list of like, who should I reach out to? Should I post here again? Should I email here again? What should I do? And we talked about those things, but I also then said, you are not allowed to do any of those things until you get out of this space.
Right.
Right? Because any business owner who's ever launched anything knows that space of like, we're so excited about it and we do all the things and then no one signs up and we're like, this is terrible. I hate everything. I don't know why this was a good idea. I don't even know like why I exist, right? Like just like everything is horrible. And when you try to take those actions from the everything is horrible space, you're never going to get the results that you want.
I really, in those moments, because we all have them, like that's a normal part of business. So number one, know that that's normal. It's a normal part of the business cycle.
Yes.
And what I try to do in those launch moments or when those, when you're second guessing everything is I'll decide how many people I want to sign up, whether it's for network marketing or for my coaching programs. And this is what I do. I write it on a piece of paper and I put a big circle around it and I put all the leads that I have like in the circle, assuming that they're going to say yes. And then once they do say yes, I circle them. But what I really work to do, and that's why this inner work and the personal development piece is so important, is keep that like vibe high and that belief strong and that vision. Like my focus is on those 6, 6, 6, 6, 20, 20, 20, whatever it is, because otherwise the fear will take over, the anxiety will take over, and we'll watch Netflix and eat cookie dough.
Yeah, which is a requirement sometimes. But I also like what you said too, and I think this is an important part that I don't want to gloss over, is that it doesn't have to be like a half-hour spa day. It can be, right. I'm going to get up out of my chair for 10 minutes and put on Taylor Swift and dance, right? Like, absolutely. I think we think if we're going to do something, it has to be like this great big thing. And it really can just be a small something that pumps us back up.
Exactly. And we know the things that level up our mood, whether it's blasting that music, whether it's, dancing it out, whether it's calling your sister and being like, okay, let's do it, but then getting back into what you want. Because again, when you're working your business based on what you want, you'll get much stronger results.
Yeah, absolutely. I want to ask you a little bit about, this is going to be a big question for the fact that this is a 25-minute podcast, but I want to talk about like our subconscious, because I know you deal a lot with this with your clients and in your work, and why we have this idea, like you were talking about in the beginning, of like the dream, right? This is what we want. This is what we want our life to look like. This is what we want our business to look like. This is where we're going. And this is where we're starting. What happens in our subconscious that keeps us from getting here most often?
There's a few things. Number one, our nervous system. So our nervous system is comfortable in what's familiar, even if we don't like it. So if we say, if you think of somebody who's only been in terrible relationships and then they have someone who's peaceful, right? Their nervous system goes, that's so boring. And so they'll sabotage and potentially go, we don't want that for anyone. But you've seen the pattern before, right? And so our system has a set point based on, years of training. And it can feel normal to be broke. It can feel normal to hate your job and to grind it out. It can feel normal to, be so tired at the end of the day that you just don't have time for anything. So one of the things we want to do is we want to heal our nervous system, to get out of fight or flight mode, to get out of that survival mode and into rest and digest, which is what I call the world of dreams, where you kind of are in that alignment, where you're operating from a place of stability and security. That doesn't mean, I say it's the eye of the storm. It can be chaotic around you, but you don't have to be feeding the chaos. And when your nervous system is in alignment, is out of fight or flight mode and into rest and digest, then you can more, you have that security and that you're more apt to do the hard thing. Because as you do the hard thing, as you message people or post about your business or, do a YouTube video, or, go to your BNI meeting or whatever, that feels vulnerable. And our nervous system will bring us back to what we understand. So one piece of the process is shifting and healing that nervous system. The other thing is our identity. All of these I am statements that we've been saying subconsciously, just kind of in the back of our mind for decades, have created what we call automatic pathways. And so when something doesn't go our way, our automatic thought is, well, it's not going to work anyway. Or, see, I told you, I'm not a business person. I'm not creative. I'm not an author. I'm not whatever. And so part of what we get to do while we're taking this new action peacefully, that doesn't mean we're not scared, but it means that we work to get out of the fight or flight mode in that action. But we're also shifting our identity in the process. So by the time I actually hit my goals, I've been like, duh, yeah, I know, for a long time, because I've been speaking about it and talking about it. And I really do believe it. I believe that it's happening. I believe we're promoting. I believe the book's coming out. I believe all of that. But it's the intentional work along the way to shift those automatic thought patterns in the process.
Yeah, I love that. And it kind of comes full circle to where we started talking about in the beginning of the interview. Whereas I think if you are operating from a place of safety in your nervous system, you're not always in fight or flight, you're going to burn out a lot less quickly. Right.
Right.
And if you are going through it believing like, I am going to be successful, I am growing through this, I am learning through this, I am going to be this person that I see myself being, your experience is going to be very different than like, it's like walking through quicksand, trying to get yourself to the end of like, I suck, nobody wants this, it's never going to work, it's terrible, right? That's how we burn out too.
Yeah, it is. It's both and, which is why it doesn't happen on accident. Nobody is like naturally wired necessarily this way. I think certainly some of us have been practicing this for a lot longer. So, keeping our vision and having these healthy habits really do make a difference, but it's all intentional. It's not an accident. You don't accidentally fall into success. These are patterns and habits you develop over time.
Yeah, absolutely. You have something called a dream board kit, and you are sharing that with our listeners. Tell us a little bit about what that is.
Yes. So what I find is that people will sometimes come to me and they'll say, I don't know what I want. I just know this isn't it. Like whatever this is, I'm ready for something new.
Yeah.
And so I created a dream board brainstorming kit there's a whole clarity workbook in there. And then it has some tools for creating a dream board to help you get that spark back, to ask yourself, all right, what do I really want life to look like? The thing to remember is that especially women, we're going through different transitions and seasons, and our kids age and things change like every few years. So it's okay to say what served me years ago isn't serving me now, and I want to rethink. And so to create that space to let those new dreams bubble up and to gain that clarity and excitement. So that's what the Dream Board Kit is all about.
That's awesome. I will put the link to that in the show notes so people can grab that. If they want to connect with you, they want to learn more about what you do and what you have going on, what's the best way for them to do that?
Facebook and Instagram, the Denise Walsh. And then I do have a podcast as well, Coaching for Coaches. And you can check that out on all the major podcast players.
Awesome. I will link to all those things in the show notes so people can reach out to you. And thank you so much for being a guest today. It was a really helpful conversation for me, actually. Just sometimes there's even things that you already know that you just like need to hear someone else say. And then you're like, oh yeah, right. So
exactly.
I assume it was helpful for the listeners, but even if it wasn't, it was helpful for me. And that's all that really matters.
Well, thank you so much, Melissa, for having me. It's been a ton of fun, and I love the work that you're doing. There's a lot of people out there that have dreams but need the roadmap, and I feel like you do a great job providing that.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
That's a wrap on this week's episode of Powerful Women Rising. Thanks for hanging out with us. If you're looking for a fun, consistent, low-pressure way to meet other women in business and create more visibility, leads, and momentum, check out the Powerful Women Rising Connection Network. Looking for deeper support, a place to think things through, get honest feedback, and stay focused as you grow? You can learn more about our masterminds through the links in the show notes. If you loved the episode, be sure to subscribe, share, and leave us a review. And until next time, keep rising, because building a business your way really is the best way.